What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Nemo Propaganda here, and today we're going to check out the ELAC Varro RS700 subwoofer. You guys have been asking me to check this thing out for a year, so I am happy to finally bring you this review. This review sample came to me directly from ELAC, and I thought that was pretty cool. They actually just reached out and they were like, hey, you want to review something? And I was like, yeah, that's awesome, right? So special thank you to them for that. Let me get those main specs on screen so you guys can check that out. One note about the price you might see here, don't check out on me just yet. The subwoofer does have automatic room correction, and subs with automatic room correction do cost about what this thing costs. This subwoofer is sold for $15.99 on ELAC site directly. You can also save $100 by buying it from another retailer like Crutchfield, for example. I'll link both in the description box below. Neither one is an affiliate link, so by all means use whatever link you would like to use. In this review, I'm going to tell you what makes this subwoofer special or unique, standout features, right? I'll tell you what the subwoofer sounds like, and then I'll tell you how it compares to some other models in and around this price, and then we'll wrap up the video. So, standout features. First and foremost, the cabinet. ELAC is not playing games. They're not cutting corners. This thing is 35 millimeters thick. That is 1.4 inches. That's no joke. In my opinion, anything thicker than 3/4 or 1 inch is pretty beefy for a subwoofer cabinet, so hats off, thank you. The driver is a proprietary piece designed by ELAC with that cool polygon surround, right? Out back, we have a bash amplifier that pairs a switch mode power supply with a class A/B section. I'm not a circuit expert, nor am I a topology expert, so don't ask me what that's all about. All I can tell you is it puts out 700 watts RMS and 1400 watts peak, so it does have a lot of headroom and current. Again, the subwoofer does have automatic room correction, so that means it also has a cell phone app with a slew of features. Anything you want to adjust, you can adjust. You can even adjust the brightness of the LED that sits below the ELAC logo on the front of the unit, and yes, you could turn it off entirely. In the app, you can adjust gain, which is your subwoofer's volume. You can adjust phase. You can adjust delay in addition to phase. What else can you adjust? There's obviously, your crossover point, right? Whether you want this thing to be, at 40 hertz, 43 hertz, 57 hertz, 61 hertz, however you want to set this thing up, you can. You also got user definable presets. This is going to be really useful for anyone that uses their subwoofer in just in like different conditions, right? Like maybe you want to get this thing dialed in perfectly. You want to save all your settings, right? Go ahead and save it, make a profile. And then you're like, you know what though? Sometimes I like to listen to music at night, or I like to watch movies at night, and I can't have my subwoofer shake in the house. Maybe you got kids sleeping, maybe you've got a neighbor, who knows, right? Okay, so make another profile, use all the same settings, then just dial down that gain a little bit, save it, boom. You've got that profile saved. You could switch to it at late nights, for example, anytime. Or what if you want different profiles for music or movies or maybe video games, right? Again, you can do the same thing. There's a slew of PEQ settings. You can have a bunch of little PEQ set up. Let's say your room's got a little dip at, say, 40 hertz. You can pump that up a little bit. Let's say you got a spike at 60 hertz. You could bring that down a little bit, right? You don't have to use the PEQs. You could certainly rely on the automatic room calibration to fix it all for you, right? I tried both ways. I have an iPhone, so I used my phone to just do the automatic room calibration. It worked just fine, but as someone who has set up like subwoofers hundreds and hundreds of times, I was like, let me try my own skills as well, because I do set up most subwoofers manually, because most subwoofers I review don't have automatic room correction, right? So I did try it both ways, right? Around back, what else do we have? We have high-level inputs. That's going to be helpful for anyone with vintage gear, tube amps, or inexpensive stereo amps, perhaps, that don't have subwoofer outs or pre-outs. You just run your, speaker level cables to the back of the subwoofers, speaker level terminals, and that is your signal. For the most part, though, most people are going to be adjusting everything from the palm of their hand, using their cell phone to get this thing dialed in, set up, or make changes and adjustments, right? That's going to be the standout features, guys. There's quite a lot. This is a full featured subwoofer. Any feature you want, this thing pretty much has, right? Let's talk about what it sounds like, because all those features are great, but if the darn thing doesn't sound any good, it doesn't matter, right? So first, look, I'll tell you straight up, this subwoofer reminded me of two other models that are a little bit more expensive in terms of its overall delivery and sound quality. Excuse me. No, I'm not going to edit out that cough. This subwoofer reminded me of the Arendelle 1723 1S. That's $1,700. That's a great sounding subwoofer. It also reminded me of the KEF KF92. That's a very clean sounding subwoofer in terms of its bass delivery, right? So we were already off to a great start. First, I used the auto calibration and I listened to it like that for 4 or 5 days. Then the rest of my review, like the next like 30 to 40 days that I've had this thing, were all just using my own settings, right? This subwoofer is really good at integrating. It seems like ELAC spent a lot of time and care making sure this thing is just going to integrate really well. It's not going to call attention to itself. It's not going to stick out look like a sore thumb. It's not going to command your attention. Now, if you want the subwoofer to command your attention, you certainly can turn up the volume a little bit more than what is considered neutral, right? And it will start to, be a little more in your face. But this darn thing just likes to integrate. And at first I was like, maybe I just don't have it turned up enough. And I'm like, no, the window behind me is rattling. Like I could feel the pressure on my chest. Like this thing is producing a lot of bass. It's just tonally a little bit on the lighter side. So for those of you that haven't seen my content before, there's, essentially two kinds of subwoofers. You can make an SPL sub, something that can get really loud, really low, and be tonally very heavy, very in your face, right? That's most subwoofers in the market. Or you can do an SQ design. SQ is a little bit niche. It's not too common because it's very expensive to make, especially if it's got a lot of output, right? That's going to be something like your Rel Carbon Special, right? Or anything by Rhythmic. Excuse me, Rhythmic. There's not a lot of SQ brands because it is really expensive to make an SQ subwoofer that has respectable output. This is not all the way on the SQ side, nor is it like an SPL sub, right? It's in the middle, slightly towards the side of SQ in terms of its tonal character. It just integrated so well. And I even like pushed it to the limit in terms of testing it, right? What I mean by that is I pulled out the Zoom Methods. That's a paper cone speaker that has a really open and expansive mid-range. And if your subwoofer is tonally heavy or an SPL style sub, right? Think something like an SVS PB2000, right? It's going to mess up the mid-range. It's going to close off the mid-range of that Zoom Method speaker. And additionally, the Zoom Method doesn't do a whole lot below 70 or 80 hertz, so it really needs a subwoofer. But the Zoom Method is so articulate. It's so quick. Its transient response is so great. It needs a subwoofer that can keep up with it. Usually DSP subwoofers, or which is pretty much anything modern these days, not the best choice usually. Usually I'd want something like a Rel T7X or one of my Rhythmic subs, maybe a JL Audio. Those are pretty quick. But I was like, I got this ELAC here. Let's see if it could do it. It could do it. It could do it. It paired just fine with those Zoom Methods. It paired up. That really surprised me, guys. It really surprised me. It paired up just fine. It integrated well. It had good mid-bass articulation, great extension, really good extension, great dynamics. Note-to-note distinction was respectable. Transient response was respectable. Overall, whatever words we want to use to describe it, bass fidelity, the subwoofer is in the category of good. If we want to talk about integration, the subwoofer is going to be in the category of excellent. Its low-end power, forcefulness, and effortless were all excellent, especially for the physical size, right? Guys, if you want a subwoofer that's like crazy effortless, you're going to need something that's well over 100 pounds, right? But this thing was plenty effortless for its size. So overall, I was quite satisfied with its bass quality, its bass power, its sense of scale, and most importantly, its integration. It didn't take a lot to get this thing to integrate with virtually anything. Of course, I tried it with other speakers like my Bucard E50s, Vocal Aria 906s, as well as the Clarity 6.2s that I have in for review. And every time the ELAC Varro RS700 was like, I'm not here to steal your attention. I'm just here to reinforce the low end and give you a little more bass. I'm never going to draw your attention to the subwoofer. You're just going to be enjoying your music with a little extra fullness. And I love that. And just to be clear, I think I've said it already, this thing can play plenty loud. Look, I told you it's got 700 watts RMS, so don't think just because it integrates really well, it can't get rowdy. It can certainly get rowdy. So how does it compare to some other subwoofers in and around this price category? Without comparisons, everything I said is still kind of hard to understand, I'm sure. So let's first compare it to another subwoofer that's about the same price and also has automatic room correction, because that is a part of the cost. It just is. Bucart Sub 10, that is about 1,500 bucks. It varies just a little bit due to the exchange rate. This thing is also 1,500 bucks. Sorry, I think the Bucart Sub is 1,400 bucks, but they're within $100 of each other. Anyway, I digress. The Bucart Sub 10 is a sealed 10-inch with 400 watts RMS, a cell phone app, automatic room correction, and a whole slew of features, just like the ELAC Varro RS700. Both subwoofers are full featured. Both have cell phone apps, all the PEQs and profiles, anything you want to adjust, you can adjust from your cell phone with either one of these subwoofers, guys. The main difference, the Varro being a 12-inch, having a little bit more power, being physically larger overall, is going to dig deeper and play louder, especially at the extremes, right? So if you had your eye on that Bucart Sub 10, for example, and you're like, hey, that thing looks sweet, Nemo gave it a great review, I kind of want one. I don't need that really shallow size. I love all the features it has, but I want more output. Here you go. The ELAC Varro RS700 is going to be your ticket. Both have really similar sound quality characteristics and such. The ELAC Varro RS700 is going to actually integrate just a little bit better, in my opinion. I do think the cell phone app of the Bucart Sub 10 is just a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. It's a little bit more beautiful visually. Both function really well. In fact, I'll go ahead and say the ELAC Varro RS700 cell phone software functions just a little bit better. It was a little bit quicker, a little bit more responsive, and I really enjoyed that. So that's that comparison out of the way. And in terms of fidelity, they're both great. They're pretty similar. The Varro is going to integrate better, extend lower, be more forceful, especially when you demand more output over it. It's going to have it being just physically larger, right? Some of you guys might be like, Nemo, how does it compare to the SVS SB5000? That thing's got automatic room correction. It's $2,000. It's kind of similar, right? Not really. The SVS SB5000, first and foremost, I don't have a review sample here. I have not reviewed it. It just came out. It weighs 102 pounds. Okay, let's remember that. It is pretty darn big. And unfortunately, SVS's automatic room correction is not available yet. I think some people don't realize that because I've had a lot of people asking me about it. It's not live yet. It doesn't exist yet, right? If you go on their website, you can see it says coming by way of a future over-the-air update to the cell phone app. So, because I know some of you guys might be like, oh, well, you know, in a couple of months, maybe SVS is going to roll out that automatic room correction on the 2000 Pro. I don't think so. I'm sure they will at some point, but I don't think we're a couple months out from that. No one really knows except SVS themselves, but considering that it's not even available on the 17 series or the new 5000 series yet, I think we're pretty far away from seeing it on something like a 3000 or 2000 Pro. I'm expecting that to come in 1 to 2 years. Personally, I could be wrong, but that's my guess, right? Anyhow, I digress. Some of you guys might ask how it compares to like crazy stuff that just don't make no sense. Anytime I review a subwoofer, someone always asks about how it compares to something way bigger or way smaller. You know, someone's gonna ask, how does it compare to the KEF KC62? Look, that's a great subwoofer. I love the KEF KC62. I own one. It's upstairs in my living room. It sits behind my couch. It is so cool. It is a really awesome subwoofer, and it can't hold a candle to the Varro RS700. It just can't, okay? The Varro RS700 is substantially larger than something like the KEF KC62. Both have really clean and clear output, which I really love about both of them. Tonally, neither one is heavy-handed. They're both a little bit on the lighter side with higher quality, higher fidelity bass. The Varro just, look, it's bigger. It's more forceful in the lower frequencies. It holds its composure when pushed into louder volumes. It is the better subwoofer. You know, if you don't need the tiny size of something like the KEF KC62 or the Bucart Sub 10 that I mentioned earlier, right? The RS700 Varro is going to be, you know, it's just going to make a whole lot more sense, right? Especially if you're shopping in that price category. Some of you guys might want to know how it compares to like some completely different type of sub, right? Something like maybe like an RSL Speedwoofer 12S, you know what I mean? It's a big vented sub. Hey, listen, I've said it a million times, guys. Huge subs, big subs can do things smaller or medium-sized subs just can't. If you've got a really big room and you don't mind having a subwoofer that's 4 or 5 times the physical size of this, look, the RSL 12S is an awesome subwoofer, but wife acceptance factor, pretty low on that subwoofer, right? So yeah, look, I'll just do one last comparison and then we're going to wrap it up. I think some of you guys might want to know, how does it compare to something just like a SVS SB2000 Pro, right? I think if we take the room correction out of the equation, I think some of you guys might be like, you know, that's a sealed 12. This is a sealed 12. You know, they both have cell phone apps that have a ton of features. That, you know, the main difference is really, you know, the ELAC Varro has about 200 watts more and it has automatic room correction. Is it really worth paying more money over something like an SVS SB2000 Pro that's about 900 bucks? So here's that comparison. So yeah, both have really awesome cell phone apps. The SVS cell phone app is just a little bit more polished. It's just a little bit more responsive, but both function really well. I didn't have any hiccups or snags with either. Both allow for various PEQ adjustments, phase adjustments, you know, frequency adjustments, gain adjustments, PEQ adjustments, and preset profiles. Whatever you want to do, both can do it, right? The main difference is automatic room correction. The SVS SB2000 Pro doesn't have it. The Varro RS700 does have it. I don't test maximum output, so I can't tell you which one will play louder, but the Varro does have on paper a little bit more power coming in at 700 watts RMS. I believe the SB2000 Pro is 525 or 550 watts RMS. Anyhow, what's the difference in terms of sound? Well, I noticed it in my room, at least the RS700 seemed to dig a little bit deeper in the frequency range, being a little bit more effortless at the, you know, in the lower frequencies, say below 30 hertz. The SB2000 Pro, you know, it could do that too, but it likes a little bit of volume. The ELAC Varro RS700 sounded better at a wider range of volumes, especially those lower volumes. Think around 70 hertz, where we're really relaxing. We're not really digging into that volume knob. The SVS SB2000 Pro is a good sub, but it needs to be cranked up and be kind of close to its limit to sound its best, right? You get up to about 80% of its limit, that's when it starts to wake up. Both subwoofers have decent transient response. I found the ELAC Varro RS700 was just a little bit quicker. I found the Varro RS700 also to have a little bit better note-to-note distinction. And when we talk about integration, this was the real big difference here. The ELAC Varro RS700 is going to be a lot better for anyone who's like, I don't want to notice my subwoofer. In my opinion, SVS subwoofers are for people who want to notice their subwoofer. You spent the money on it, you want to notice it, you want it to draw your attention a little bit. That's how you enjoy bass, and there's nothing wrong with that. The Varro RS700 is for the total opposite person. The person's like, I never want to notice my subwoofer. In fact, I just want it to sound like my speakers are like 3 times the size and just can extend super low. I want my bass to really sound just very natural and integrated into my system. That's what the Varro does. The SVS SB2000 Pro is like more in your face. It's more aggressive. It's more assertive, right? It's making a statement. I made a whole video about this topic a long time ago, but I hope that makes sense to you guys. Overall, what I'm saying here is in terms of sound quality, both are good. The Varro RS700 has a slight edge overall with any metric we want to use to describe sound quality, but the biggest difference is the way the Varro integrates with virtually just any kind of speaker. Like, I wouldn't use the SVS SB2000 Pro with the zoom method. I think that would be a very bad pairing. The bass of the SB2000 Pro is heavy-handed. I don't think that would pair well with the mid-range of the zoom method that is very delicate, but the Varro conversely would. However, something like a Polk I can't remember, Polk Reserve R200, right? That's got thicker bass to it. That's got like a heavier handed presentation. Something like that, I think the SVS SB2000 Pro would actually, you know, integrate really well with, right? But those speakers that have that lighter, airier mid-range, the Varro is going to be what you prefer. So that's that comparison done. Look, with that, I think I've told you most of the stuff I wanted to tell you. The Varro RS700 is all about clean output, really good integration, never drawing attention to itself. I think that's what they had in mind when they designed it. That's the goal, right? They wanted to make a subwoofer that would be forceful but not command your attention with its delivery or heavy-handedness or aggressiveness. Again, it certainly can be aggressive if you dig into that volume knob more than you should, and it's fine to do that if that's what you enjoy. But that's not how I had it set up. So look, this YouTube channel does have a free Discord server. If you've got any questions, holler. You can also use the YouTube comment section below, but if your question is more complicated, you know, maybe you got some weird room you want to show me, you got to use the Discord. You could post pictures in there, right? Link is in the description box. Anyways, if you got any questions, holler. Until next time, take care.